All right, click the links to join the channel here over at subscribe. Sorry, I got a mailbox. I'm mailing some comics. So the Mary Sue says the Sound of Freedom is a disturbing box office hit, but is a little bit unclear why in their article. It's mostly guilt by association, ad hominem, strawman, and deflection, which is kind of the left wing's area of comfort. So when the left wing takes their mask off, believe them. You really got to look at it. It's like people don't want to look into the abyss. Sometimes you just have to. They really do need access to your kids. I mean, take a look at what's been going on for the past 5 to 10 years. This isn't going to go away on its own. So the Mary Sue is disturbed by the success of this movie, which is a low-budget film about a group called the Underground Railroad that goes around saving kids. Oh, the horrors. And for some reason, this drives the left wing crazy because they abuse kids. Like I said, what do you think's been going on the past 5 years? That's left-wing stuff. I mean, there's more to it than that, but that's really what it boils down to, is they really do need access to your kids to create this brave new world that they need to create, and they need to get access to them young. It's like, oh, well, thank God they control the schools and the media. Oh, yeah, that's actually not such a good thing. Yeah, homeschooling and small base micro schools are the only way to avoid that. You're not going to fix the schools. I mean, you might be able to take over one school board, but the rot is just too deep within schools. Unfortunately, your taxes pay for all that, which is... Anyway, so they believe that they are... Was it Janet Yellen? $33 trillion in debt. We can afford two wars. Oh, okay. So they believe that in the form of socialist state power, they want to have the right to control your kids because they want to brainwash your kids into taking puberty blockers and having surgery to remove their genitals and sterilize them, so they can turn them into catamites for adults. Sounds crazy, right? Except that it's all actually happening, so I'm not that crazy. Every time I look around at society, it amazes how we all just let this happen without forming hiking groups, I'll say that. Instead, we're just so distracted with sports ball and video games that we just can't get off the couch. Most of us are too fat to get off the couch anyway. If you keep people distracted with circuses and morbidly obese with high fructose corn syrup and bread, well, they'll never revolt. Now, the weird thing about this Mary Sue article is it doesn't really talk about the problem with the movie. They do this childish guilt by association thing. I mean, that's the Mary Sue's par for the course. They say that terrible person Mel Gibson endorsed the movie. That's guilt by association, except Mel hasn't, or poison, well, I don't know. Except Mel hasn't done anything terrible. I mean, a logical fallacy when you come across it, even if you don't know exactly. It's like knowing there's an objection in that line of questioning somewhere, but you don't have the exact federal rules of evidence in front of you. Except Mel hasn't done anything terrible. He's a base Chad. He just makes, I think, religious movies, mostly what he focuses on now. The movie stands on its own. It doesn't matter who endorses it. Then they mention that that intelligence agency in the Middle East that I probably shouldn't name because it's a hot word. The psyop to brainwash the MAGA normicons, that letter that comes between P and R, I think. I'm a little dyslexic with the alphabet. The normicons into never leaving the couch and trusting the plan because the patriots are in charge. I'm making finger air quotes, which I realize is pretty dumb. Yeah, that's obviously a psyop by a hostile foreign interest, whether in the warm, sunny, sandy area or in Russia or China or something. They're controlled ops. They're keeping you distracted when you should be forming in-groups, gardening clubs, and advocating to advance your own interests, IRL, political action committees, that kind of stuff. All that constitutionally protected activity that seems to terrify the MAGA normie. Patriots don't cover their faces. Yeah, how'd that work out for the J6 people? They're in prison for 20 years. But they shouldn't have to. Due process is... So you're on the right, and you know the government's corrupt, and you're expecting due process from a corrupt government? Oh, when you say it like that, yeah, it really wasn't... I mean, it's really not a high IQ take. It's like, you know the government is corrupt. The Mayorkas and the Garlands and the Ray and all the others. Like, it's corrupt. It's corrupt. Totally biased. Those guys are in prison for, doing almost nothing. But you still believe patriots don't cover their faces. It's like, the founding fathers were actually as anonymous as they could be. Oh yeah, I never really thought through that second or third step. Yeah, it's weird. It kind of seems like you'll just make any excuse to not get off the couch. Fed says what? For peaceful assembly, constitutionally protected activity? Has the right wing read the Constitution at all? No, we can't have free speech. Really? Because it's in the First Amendment, I think. Anyway. So a lot of this is the external messiah complex where you're free to sit on the couch and get fat because someone else is going to do something for you. Why would anyone believe that? Because they're scared to get off the couch. So it's easier to believe that than actually form up groups and take the country back. Then, when right wing groups peacefully assemble, these MAGA normies are the first to call them feds because real patriots are obese and they don't leave the couch. And they definitely don't cover their faces so they can get doxxed and fired and be put in prison for 20 years. Do you guys think at all? I'm not you guys. I know like half this audience is like super ultra based chads, but like the MAGA normie who says that on Gab and Twitter, I look at them and I just lose my effing mind. And I'm not the only one. Like there's a lot of us who would just go crazy when we see that kind of logic. And you're like, you haven't thought it through. And they don't want to. They don't want to. Watching the right wing really is like I'm just getting pissed off just talking about this. Like watching the right wing is the most frustrating, depressing thing you can do to try. It's like herding kittens. It's alcoholic, rabid kittens. No, don't trust the plan, guys. Don't trust an external anonymous messiah complex coming from that Middle East, that warm, sunny, sandy country. That's a psyop. Form local IRL groups and make your own plans. Are you saying form local groups? Yeah, like the founding fathers, like any Constitution protected activity. It's like join the Subscribe Star for the Northern California Hiking Club to engage in constitutionally protected activities. Fed says what? Don't advocate illegal activities. Anyway, so what this alphabet group says that a bunch of blood-drinking Epsteins meet on private islands to abuse kids and partake in eyes-wide-shut satanic rituals, which is all a far right-wing conspiracy theory, and somehow it's attached to Hollywood celebrities who are also involved in abuse, which clearly is an insane thing to accuse these people of. I mean, Woody Allen, Roman Polanski, Weinstein, Kevin Spacey, Dustin Hoffman, and who's that CNN guy? Jeremy Tubin, I think, who was enjoying himself on a conference call with like the ugliest women known to I've ever seen, and then he was fired from CNN and then rehired for CNN after that. I mean, that's kind of seems like it's part of a humiliation ritual for a conquered people. Or James Gunn, who joked about abusing kids on his Twitter repeatedly, he was fired for a year and then rehired. Gosh, weird. Or Dan Schneider is working with kids and then suddenly was not working with kids. So that's all a far right-wing thing, and you can trust Hollywood, the media, and the government. And as for the silly satanic stuff, all day Maria Abramovic type of thing, that's just for fun. Her posing with kids and covering their eyes or wrapping them around with snakes and painting the walls with blood or covering naked young girls with, blood-looking corn syrup and eating off them. That's just symbolic. Or Anthony and Scott Weiner with their child art and passing laws to make sodomy easier in California for kids and adults, or Tony Podesta and his art. That's all not what you think it is. It's, I guess, perfectly normal for adults to do these things, except we don't do these things, and it doesn't seem perfectly normal to us. It actually does seem kind of satanic and abusive. To have advertising like the Balenciaga Do As Thou Wishes, where they literally had kids in BDSM gear. I mean, it sounds like I'm making that up, and then you can look up the images on that. Credit to Brittany Ventney for being the first to cover that story on YouTube. I mean, that does seem a little bit on the evil side. If I had to define evil, I would point to the Balenciaga type of stuff or the Epstein Island type of stuff. And I personally would, give them due process and then handle it from Soylent Green. But the Mary Sue is worried that talking about these Epsteins in Hollywood will stir up fear about people wanting to protect their kids, and people will revert to more conservative gender roles to keep their kids safe. And the Mary Sue is very concerned about not keeping your kids safe. They don't worry about their own kids because they don't have any, so they need to focus on controlling your kids. So the whole Mary Sue article really seems to say that for the left wing to win, they need to sexualize kids for some reason. It seems like Communism 101, mouse children, corrupt the children, destroy the family, make the child reject their parents, and then join the Bolshevik found family. This cuts them off from their roots and destroys the nation. The next step is to take them out of their gender roles so they can't or won't form a family and have kids. They want them BLT, hating their parents and pushing for a communist state to act as a proxy for the family that the globalists destroyed since post-war. I mean, the best way to have to usher in socialism, communism, globalism, Bolshevism, whatever you want to call it, is to have as many single women as possible, because then they essentially marry the state. It's funny that they talk about drinking blood to stay young, except that actually is a real thing. So I'm not sure if the Mary Sue was unaware of the Anne Rice interview of Vampire fame. Gave a recent interview where she's talking about youth blood transfusions for old people. It actually does keep them young. So it's a real thing. I mean, and the drinking it might be a little figurative, but it's weird. It's weird. It's like a lot of this stuff is kind of gaslighting and shifting, where half the stuff they're talking about actually does happen. So they want the socialist state to control kids. Here's the thing: these people really are evil, and they really do Epstein kids. The conspiracy theory is so true and far-reaching that these puppet masters had him deleted in his prison cell, and his partner in the French prison, where the cameras went off and the guys went in and tied up loose ends. That's how powerful these people are. So no, it's not a conspiracy theory when stuff like this actually happens. It's just reality. It's a reality theory. And you're not going to vote your way out of this, I don't think. So form local hiking clubs immediately. You can check out mine on Subscribestar. Yes, I'm shilling, but I need some new equipment for live streaming, so it is what it is. That stuff doesn't by itself. Long, weird article. I mean, a really uncomfortable read, and it's odd. And then you make allegations like against some of the actors, but that doesn't have anything to do with the movie. But a long, weird article that's written by Mary Sue's staff and not by an individual. Kind of like you wouldn't want your name attached to it. Or what was Cuties? Was that on Amazon or Netflix or something? I mean, you really look at the left, or I'll loosely call these people the left, and you look at this, and a lot of their movement is dependent on, founded on, hinged on access to kids at a young age, a formative age, where they really need, like if you ask them should parents have the right to control the curriculum, I'd say yes, absolutely. Yeah, teach them whatever they want. And homeschool for sure. And the left-wing belief is no, the state must control it. And the state means them. They go, but why would the state be better at raising kids? Oh, well, they're experts. But they're trained by the state itself, where if you think the state is corrupt, then the government teachers are going to be corrupt also. It's better to have the parents, their religious leaders, their tribe leaders, their extended family raise kids that way and teach kids that way. It's like, yeah, you can have a basic, knowledge base for like curriculum of, math and sciences and history or whatever, but, English, grammar, all that kind of stuff. But like really everything else, I mean, you're better off homeschooling than giving your kid over to a government school when the government is not a government of a nation anymore. It's just a commercial zone controlled by the worst people on earth. I hope there wasn't too many hot words in this. I think I avoided the hot word that I actually used the first time about that intelligence agency, which probably not supposed to name. Anyway, join the channel here over at Subscribestar, like I said, and I will be live streaming very soon. See you guys all next episode.